Hello, everyone. Welcome to the SC Prime provider call, provider meetup. Got some things to go over this week, ranging on a bunch of different fronts, but I'll just jump right into it. I expect probably our member count or our viewer count will continue to increase as the call goes on. We'll probably get that wave in a minute or two, but so that's always kind of funny to see. But people listening on the recording, which seems to be probably about half the viewership we get ultimately, they probably have no idea what I'm talking about. But maybe if you showed up live, you get some of these little inside jokes. Anyway, let's get into it. So this past week was a pretty big milestone for our project, for the company. We released version 1.0 of our Relayer application. So this is both pretty important for utility, because this is what allows everybody to actually be able to use what we've been developing, and it's kind of the purpose of of what we all jumped into this project for. But also for certain people, this represents like 3.5 years of some pretty laborious work. So I'd imagine for them, I hope that they were able to take some time on release day and reflect on some of how we were able to get here. But yeah, pretty important and significant launch. So this application, compared to the ones that we've released previously, we were able to use some of the kind of open testing and open use cases. Our community, as always, is great and is very communicative with us. We try to tap into that and lean into that and harness it as much as we can, because when you're given such an awesome and technically inclined community as we are, you'd be crazy not to want to feed that and incorporate that. And I mean, a lot of us on the team came from that kind of background. We've been those guys in the communities, hanging out, testing stuff, trying to break it, letting people know when funny things happen. We've been those people. So we really appreciate all the testing that has gone into kind of bug fixing, bug tracking, that is then ultimately allowed for this 1.0 release to be as smooth as it is. In this release, some notable features that were included in this one compared to the previous ones. Pretty excitingly, we've got provider selection working. So this allows the big map that hopefully you've all seen, but a big map of the world, and you can click on the different countries that you want to be in your kind of custom provider set. So this is kind of the beginning of one of the major pillars of some of what will really allow our project to be powerful and have some unique strengths that we can tap into that other networks can't really do. So the provider selection that debuted in this 1.0 release is just kind of a country-based thing. So you click on the different countries that you want. There are some kind of stock regions as well, I believe. But where we're going from here will also be really cool. So if some of you recall from the NAB demo, we have the ability to also then filter for beyond just the countries for the provider uptime percent. So I only want providers with maybe 95% or better uptime. Things like perhaps how long they've been online for. So like if they didn't just come, or if they just came online yesterday, maybe you don't quite trust them yet. You'd prefer them to be online a little bit longer, that sort of thing. And then there's a couple other things as well that we're kind of playing with. And this is pretty important from a product development standpoint, which is perhaps something that's not as interesting to you guys, but it is interesting to me, of what is kind of the right way to implement some of these things. So when I was giving demos at NAB back in the end of April in Las Vegas, one of the things that kind of occurred to me as I was showing the different people, oh yeah, this provider has like 98% uptime, this one is 94% uptime. I could kind of see on their face that like they were thinking, isn't that bad? Isn't that terrible? Like 94% uptime, am I supposed to trust that? Because it wasn't, it was a little bit lost on them, and it was my fault potentially for not making sure that this was clear. But it's a preconception that I think everyone who's kind of in our community is so used to that we forget the people who are kind of learning about this idea for the first time have to get over this hump where it's okay if providers only have 94 or 95 or 96% uptime, because you're using so many different providers for every piece of data, for every file you upload, that it's okay if each one is offline for 5% of the time or whatever, because collectively, between the potentially dozens or hundreds of providers that each file is distributed across, there's sure to be at least enough of them online at pretty much any point in time for you to be able to have access to that file. So we're kind of playing with some ways to represent that. So if you open the UI for the first time and you start poking around, it isn't just asking you, okay, well, what percent uptime provider do you want? Because, well, for one, you might have no idea what is a good uptime for me to select. And another thing is, it might not be represented clearly that, sure, if you select 95% uptime, you're still getting like 99.9 whatever availability. So we're determining ways to represent that sort of thing. Those are going to make it into a future release. Can't promise it'll be the next one, but it is something that we're working on actively. So yeah, having different representations of this provider selection, that'll be a cool direction to take. I think it'll do a lot more for us. And there will potentially be some kind of other ways to abstract some of that too, that we might get into in the future. So anyway, yes, this 1.0 release, big milestone for us. We're all pretty jazzed about it. This will be the version that we start opening up to the world, opening up to our partners. Well, I mean, it's already in the wild, but this will be the version that we anticipate. Hopefully, a lot of data will flow through, and we'll continue to improve it. We have a lot of ideas of where to take things from here, but it's in a pretty good place today, and we're excited for you guys to start using it. Next up, we can talk about some of the different Examiner kind of license and software versions. So first up, we've got the Examiner full license for those of you who are waiting on that. We've got the Linux version nearing completion. So this will be Docker-based on Linux. I've spoken to the dev recently, and it sounds like it'll be ready for some of our internal testing and kind of putting it through the gauntlet next week. And then we'll have a better idea from there when we can release it to you guys. But yeah, we're putting a lot of effort into making sure it's a polished product, kind of in line with the whole Examiner ethos of you don't have to be a tech expert. You don't have to really know the ins and outs of computer science to be able to set up a provider. So we're really making sure that those development thoughts are carried into the product as well. So there's no need to be scared of Linux. Like I'm sure people, I mean, the Linux name carries some weight to it. People kind of do have a preconception that it is advanced and a little scary, and you'll hit your head on a lot of pieces kind of behaving weirdly. So yeah, we're trying to do our best to make sure that for our part and as to the best of our abilities, everything will go smoothly for the people who are going to be undergoing that process shortly. We're also experimenting with a utility that will allow existing installs to be imported over, so you don't have to start completely from scratch. Talking with the dev, it once again sounded like we couldn't promise 100% that program would 100% work, but we're trying pretty hard to make sure that it would. But I mean, there's so many edge cases with something like that, different file system types. It can get pretty hairy, even if conceptually it sounds straightforward. But yeah, we are putting a lot of effort into making sure that these kinds of things will go as well as possible. So once again, you won't be waiting too much longer. That is near rounding the corner. Next up, the full Windows version. So this is actually an interesting one. For those of you who know a little bit more about how Examiners work, and you know some of the different subtleties between like the supervisor and how that manages SPD that's running, it's okay if those words don't mean anything to you. You don't have to know, but some people are kind of interested in what's going on inside. So something that we've been playing around with is for our supervisor program, which is kind of the brains of the operation. That's what's making sure that the UI is running and making sure that SPD, which is kind of the core software, that's running. And when it runs into troubles, supervisor has some intelligence to be able to kind of correct some of it. So Supervisor is traditionally, it's deployed on every Examiner, and it works pretty well. It's in a good place today. So we have it running on Linux on all of the Examiners. Under the hood, they're all running Linux. And we discovered that it actually doesn't take that much effort to make it run natively on Windows. So that is a direction that we're going to try and go. I know some people expressed some kind of concern about Docker on Windows, and we had some concerns about that too, because you start getting into some hairy virtualization support, and it was it was looking a bit like there wasn't going to be any one solution we could choose that was going to be without compromises. But when we figured out that actually Supervisor can, with a bit of tweaking, run on Windows, that opened up a new possibility that actually seems like a pretty good option. So we're going to be pursuing that as well. And that'll likely be a little bit behind the Linux release. For the basic SPD and for the basic license, for the people who are waiting on the auto re-announce and auto pricing, that's not too far off either. So we've been able to, kind of, with some of the software that we've shipped in the last week or two, we're able to turn some attention to that. Since the price of the SBC coin hasn't been that variable over the last couple of weeks, then I mean the auto pricing, for the most part, you're okay if you set it to kind of the same range. But that isn't too far off either. I think we know exactly how we want to implement that, and it's just a matter of like sitting down and grinding that out. It's been like architected, like the sprint development for that. So so that's not too far off either. I'd expect within the next couple of weeks. But we'll touch on later on in this call is some of the other SPD work that is undergoing right now regarding contracts. So that's coming as well. Oh, I think Fredboat just started speaking up. I'm not sure what that was about. All right. So the hardware relayer and remote access. So these are actually kind of tied. So one of the features that is coming to Examiners and hopefully the full licenses, although I'm not sure we're 100% sure on that. But what will be coming later, one of the flagship features that we've been eyeing for a long time is remote accessibility. So this would allow you to be able to kind of log in and manage and check on your Examiners from a distance, so not having to be on the same network. We knew that would have to be accessed through a kind of account and a web portal. So this has been tied to the effort to the console that I think a lot of you guys have seen. So that's the console.exapro.net. So that's the kind of center home dashboard for where you can check on your different Examiners. Right now, it's where the license keys are tied. It's also where, if you're using a relayer, that's where you would enter some of the billing information. That's where you'd get the download from, and be able to check on that kind of account status. So the console will continue to be a pretty important piece for us. And as the user, it'll continue to play an important role. And one of those roles being remote access. So I don't think we have a specific timeline. I can't promise anything today. But I know that some of the groundwork is being laid out for that, and it's being laid out in a way that will suit Examiners well, but also, and this is kind of pretty neat, I think, it'll also be able to suit relayers. So when we're able to, I think we're able today, but when we are shipping the hardware relayers, which we've touched on in past calls, the goal is that those will be running a similar architecture or kind of the same groundwork that the Examiner remote access is running. And that way, from that same console dashboard, instead of going to the Examiners tab or the providers tab, if you were to instead go to the relayers tab, you could view all of the different relayers that have been configured and tied to your account. And from there, you'd be able to also control some of the settings that they're running. You'd be able to check in on perhaps some of the health and status see how complete some of your uploads are, that sort of thing. So there's a lot there that I think will really, in terms of day-to-day use, make things a lot more straightforward to use. And I think that's a pretty cool feature, and not something that I think exists in a lot of other projects, or if it exists, the scope of how they're implementing it is smaller than what we're doing here. So I think that'll be a pretty cool thing. Once again, we're working on that, and we've kind of laying out the groundwork. And that's not, I don't think it's too far off either. So that's it for me for the kind of specific product development updates. Now, I think hopefully some of you guys might be interested in what I'm kind of been working on, some of the day-to-day here in Henry's world. So what I've been working on for the last couple of weeks is a bit of a change of focus or direction, but one that I'm really kind of interested in expanding more on and seeing where it goes is marketing and content. So for a long time with this project, the focus has very much been on development, and I think that's definitely the right way to do it. That's how we're able, with the team, the size of our team, able to put together such a complete piece of software like the Relayer application, have like thousands of X miners in the wild. I mean, we've achieved a ton by making sure that the fundamentals are there first, by making sure like development over everything else. And I think that is definitely the right way of doing things. And I've thought that the whole way through. But there does come a point where, the product or the solutions and the different things that you're working on start getting to a point where they are actually kind of ready to be used by the world. And there comes a time where it is time to start marketing and producing content. And I think we've been pretty open about this, that we are at that time now, which is really exciting. And I'm pretty pleased to be helping kind of lead the charge on that front. So what you can expect over the next couple of weeks, well, I suppose the next couple of weeks is a pretty specific timeline. Maybe over the next couple of months, some of the different fingers that have my pie in. We're looking at the different website properties that we have. So that would be scpry.me. So that's the kind of main landing page for the network itself and the project. There's the examiner.net website, which is the storefront for examiners and licenses. And there's some blog pieces there as well for providing and fans and those sorts of things. And then we also have the exapro.net property, which has been kind of the main page for the Exanet services, which is for using our networks, the relayer, and actually being able to store and upload data to the network. So all of these websites, I think it kind of makes sense why there are several different websites, because there are a lot of different aspects to our project. I think it is the right way to break it off to different websites instead of just having one like huge website kind of host everything, because then you're not able to suit as well to all the different people that are coming in, and some of them are wanting to learn more about like how do you actually use and upload to the network. Some of them are just interested in examiners. Maybe some are more interested in the blockchain sides of things. So I think it makes sense to still maintain these three different websites, but having a meeting tomorrow with our website developer to kind of go over how we can help unify some of the look and feel of these three websites and kind of tie it in, or tie the websites into each other more. So it's a lot more straightforward to navigate between them. I kind of update some of the look and feel of those properties. So that'll be pretty cool. Keep your eye out for that. Hopefully, I mean, it won't be like tomorrow, but it's coming, and I think it'll be neat when that happens. Some of the content as well. So I think I was jokingly referred to the other day in the Discord channels as Chief Splainer Officer, which got a chuckle out of me. But it's true that I do like I do like learning personally about how our network and how some of the other networks that are similar to ours work. And I like kind of helping other people understand how they work and some of the differences between them, some of the strengths. So some of the content that I'll be working on pretty early on that you can expect over the next couple of weeks will be kind of focused on helping break down some of the technical aspects of our network and some of the more subtle ways that it is actually like pretty advanced and it has some strengths over some of the different ways that other people are doing things. And this piece of content that I'm working on right now, that's also a pretty direct overview of some of the different storage networks in our field. So that'll be some kind of comparisons to like Filecoin and Storage and Saya, and kind of an overview, not just, I mean, if you Google for existing articles that are overviews, I mean, you'll find plenty, but as I was reading over them, I think they all kind of lacked, they didn't quite go to a place that I was hoping that they would go to. A lot of them kind of stuck with just kind of technicals or like the 30,000 foot view. None of them really talked about what it's actually like to use any of these networks. And that's something that I think is kind of missing from the existing content that's out there. And that's something that I really want to bring to the table. So that's a project that I'm working on now. And I think over the next couple of weeks and couple of months, you guys can expect a lot of that type of content, potentially not just from me, but if we bring on other people or if other people show interest. Yeah, I think you guys can expect a pretty steady pace of content coming that kind of helps break down and make more approachable for some, like some articles might be kind of targeted more toward the public. And so it'll be breaking down some aspects of our network to be more approachable. And then some might be more developer focused. So this isn't all just kind of SC Prime for Dummies type material. There will be some there that's very much technical focused and for people who are really interested in the guts of how everything works. But making sure that that kind of content and material is available for them too. Because, well, I think a lot of those people are out there, and those are the kind of people that we want to encourage to know more about our network, because that's how cool things happen. So I'm excited to be making that kind of material for you guys. Yeah, I think it'll be a cool summer for SC Prime, and the rest of the year I think will be really exciting in terms of new developments, some of the direction that things are heading. I think it'll be awesome. So I'll now change over the stage to my other co-host, Ken, who'll be discussing some of the other updates that we have for you guys. So take it away, Ken.
Hey, thanks. Yeah, I want to just actually talk about that marketing thing because I think it's really important right now, and I think folks maybe. I think this is the case a lot across the entire project, and I think one of the things that you highlighted, which is really valuable and important, we're trying to do so much. I mean, we just really are trying to do so much, and we are really not resourced to do as much as we're trying to do. But somehow we're pulling it off, and cross your fingers, we'll continue to do so. But you know, one of the things that, you know, we saw a lot of was people carping a little bit about the licensing and how that all works and, you know, why do we have to pay to play and blah, blah, blah. But, you know, a lot of things in terms of other crypto projects, at least, if you want to go ahead and couch it there, is that most of the projects didn't really have a product focus. What you saw over the last, like, year to 2 years is you saw a number of projects really rise to the top because they did have a product focus. It just turns out that the majority of them were fintech and primarily based around lending and, you know, staking and whatever, and trying to remake money essentially. So those, but they are focused on products. Whether there are products that blew up or not, you know, isn't really to my point. My point is that they were product oriented. And then there's a couple of other projects out there that have done well with actually coming to the table with real products. I think we talk about helium a lot of the time. But one of the things that you get to next is that you get to this place that, but they really aren't, able to get out there and market them appropriately. And I think this is going to cut really quickly to a strength that we have that some in crypto would call a weakness. I don't care. But at the end of the day, we did kind of do this thing where we said, well, look, evolution then revolution. We got to address Web 2 customers, even though I hate those terms. You can't just rush right to everything being self-serve. Everybody, go buy and custody their own coins and, do whatever. I mean, you're not going to get any uptake right now. And then, on top of that, if that wasn't a true story in January of 2021, it became a true story in June of 2022, when literally the entire space blew up behind what looks like massive fraud. And there already was a credibility gap in crypto. There already was this, viewpoint that people didn't trust crypto. They think it's a scam. They think it's all based on nothing. They think it's just stupid. It is what it is. And, we all know that's wrong, right? We all know that this is, transformative tech. We all know that we're headed to a future where returning sovereignty of data, of control, of access, of networking, is going to be a thing. It just isn't a thing in its current iteration. And we've done ourselves no favors in terms of making it a thing. So, there has to be this middle ground. And look, marketing is old-fashioned. 7 touches, man. You need to hit some people a lot of times before they go ahead and pull the trigger on a product. It just is what it is. Been that way for years. And the situation is that most projects in our space are not really primed for that pump. They just don't have it in their, budget, direction, roadmap, whatever, for that next step. And how do you do it anyway? Right? I mean, what is their marketing going to be if they're fully decentralized? That buy our coins, right? Because that's what it all ends up with. Buy our coins because you need to use them to use our protocol. And in our case, it's not about that. It's about marketing to companies to actually use our storage. And all of the marketing bullet points are completely non-crypto related. They're completely off in other directions. And there's a lot there that you have to cover. You have to cover security, you have to cover durability, you have to cover availability, you have to cover all the different S3 applications that we're going to be providing and compatibility. And then once you start grinding down into that level, you got to start covering, well, how compatible are you and what level, and do you cover these specific features and blah, blah, blah. And so that's going to be a whole thing. So, this whole marketing component needs to get off the ground with the licensing dollars that we've raised, with a few dollars that we pulled together off of XMiner sales and so forth, while obviously still paying developers to keep on developing that gigantic roadmap that he just read out. So, man, we're just really tight, and everything that we're doing is just really rope tight. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, by the way, because you can really get a lot accomplished when everybody's, feeling the, the sharpness of the knife that close at hand. But at the end of the day, right now, it's sort of my responsibility to go out there and find the money to really take us to that next level. So I'm focused on that a lot. That's why about the only time you really see me now in the Discord is just when I do have a couple of minutes to set aside and I shit post the stupid stuff I post in the welcome channel. But mostly I'm focused on the other stuff. I'm trying to build the fundraising in order to bring in the dollars we really need, because the marketing we really need right now is we need, up in the 6 and 7 figures worth of dollars to market with. Because the next step is to take all the case studies and white papers and presentation stuff that we're going to build around the tool, how you use it, the tutorializations, the videos and so forth, and then get them out there and to start paying for the marketing so that we can get them in front of people 7 times so that they do come in and start buying the piece. And besides that, we also are focused really heavily on doing some partner work. And so right now, one of the things that's happening with the partners is the partners got kind of bored because they're typically people that already have a lot of things going on. So we didn't really have a lot for them yet in the first couple of partner meetings, so I shelved them. Then I started them up. In the first partner meeting we restarted, we didn't have the relayer really ready to go yet. So today's partner meeting was essentially non-attended. But I think that's a mistake, by the way, because one of the things that I sort of announced in that meeting and what I want to sort of announce to you right here and right now, which is a little different, one of the ways that we plan to go ahead and onboard a lot of data, and if you've been around the project long enough, you would have known this was coming. If you haven't been here except since December or January, this might surprise you a little bit based on everything you've heard so far. But it really ought not to, because it's just how things work and how we've worked from the beginning. We take care of our own. But one of the things that I've instructed our people to do internally is to crank up how much data is on the network. Now, we've had to get through this data loss issue. I'll talk about that in a couple of minutes. But I've set a milestone to double the amount of storage on the network in terms of our testing data. Because what I want to do is I want to push that number up significantly for you guys. And then what will happen is as we start to onboard real world data, then we'll go ahead and phase out the test data as we have it and let you take off from that higher level. So what we're really trying to do right now is get a growth curve going, and then we will keep that growth curve going all the way through the next several years by onboarding customers. And so the announcement, if you didn't hear it right there, is over the next couple of weeks, and it's going to take weeks. It doesn't take like minutes to upload petabytes of data. It takes a long time. You're going to start to see a lot of data get uploaded. And the good news is we boiled it down to just the people who really, really want to be here. If you're still here right now, you believe in this, you understand it, you get it. Or you fucked up and just like put it on autopilot and, show up out of the blue, which happens pretty much every other couple of days, and say, hey, yeah, I haven't really been paying attention. Is this thing still alive or did it die? And who knows? They probably spent $4,000 on an Examiner and just said, the hell with it. I don't even know what I'm doing. But at the end of the day, most of the people that are here that have bought the contractor licenses, have bought the ability through Examiners, are really going to be here long term with us. And so you are the people that are going to start off with this next big chunk of data that's coming down the pike. So you could start to expect over the next several months to see the amounts of coins coming your way to increase. Although I would also say that's probably not totally true, because if you've been paying attention to the actual price chart, yeah, you're probably running out of time to get cheap coins. All I've been trying to do is tell you all along that the emission is harsh mistress and things are what they are, but it sure looks to me like it's formed a bit of a base and reaccumulation. So the good news is not only will you have more coins in your pocket, but they'll probably be worth more. And what will end up happening is several months from now, people will look back and you guys will be clapping yourselves on the back saying, yeah, I ROI'd my Examiner, I'm looking to buy a couple more now, and blah, 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 because the newcomers that are coming in right then will say, well, how are we ever going to make any money? Just like all you guys said back in the day. And ultimately, you'll see it now. You see how it works. It's the growth curve. It's the price. It's all of it. It's a flywheel that works very nicely together. But the next step is we got to get real data onboarded, and that's the marketing. And so with the partners, one of the things that I've also said is this. So I've told you the Corp has been out there buying coins aggressively. We have. And so we have a pretty large network development wallet, as we've talked about. It's still somewhere around 5 million coins. And now we've got another 1 million to 1.5 million to add to that from the corporation that is all essentially earmarked for you. All of it, right? It's all earmarked for you. And the deal is that with partners, right, with people who can onboard data to the network, what we have the ability to do right out of the gate is we have the ability to differentiate in an interesting way. So let me just talk a little bit about my philosophy here, because I think this is really important. When we started this thing out, we never said never said that the reason we're doing this is to be the lowest cost cloud storage on the planet. We never said that. Yeah, we said that cost could be a clear factor in decentralized storage networks. But we never went out there saying we want to be the dirt cheap guys. And I will never be a part of that kind of a company or product development, thing, because I don't believe in it. I believe differentiation is how you get to the promised land. And differentiation for us has a couple of pretty big, pillars to begin with. This green thing is going to turn into a big thing. Trust me on this. Over the next 2 or 3 years, being able to report that our PUE started out close to 1 and stayed there all the way through is going to be huge. Our sustainability factor is going to be a large component of our ability to get in through some doors that other providers are going to have a hard time getting through. Security is going to be another huge area, because when we finally get some people in here to try and hack this thing professionally and realize that it's pretty much unhackable once it gets onto the network, unransomwareable once it gets onto the network, then at the end of the day, we're going to be able to say we are more secure than all of the other ones. That's a huge factor. And then, of course, the final one is you own your data. You always own your data. You hold your data right before it goes up to the network. And even after it goes up to the network, we have no ability to get to it. We can't see it before. We can't see it after. You always have control and ownership of your data. And that will only improve over time. Right now, we control your contracting. But at the end of the day, when we do switch to Web3, contracting will flow out to you guys, and it will be the only true, in my view, decentralized cloud storage that is based on the S3 protocol and also based on a cryptocurrency underpinning. But we'll see. I really believe that, but I think it's going to take 1 year to 2 years to totally play out correctly. Anyway, the point being there with the partners that I just want to close up on is we are going to make significant amounts of SCP available to help partners close deals. And that just means right out of the gate that if a partner shows up and says, man, I love what you're doing here, but you're $10 a terabyte, and I can stand up a storinator, or I can do some other thing, and I don't see how I'm going to compete at $10. The first thing I'm going to say is, well, Amazon's 30, so, right out of the gate, we're already 3x below. But second of all, let's talk about the deal. How many petabytes do they have, and what are they expecting, and what we need to give them in terms of comp storage, and for how long to make them come on board and to go ahead and sign a contract. And once we go ahead and start offering that up to the partners, and the partners start recognizing, hey, I can make some real money here, I think you're going to see some pretty good data start to come in really quickly, even though we won't yet have that full-blown 7-touch marketing strategy out there on the street that I'm really trying to get to. So I think that's a huge thing, and to jumpstart that, we're going to go ahead and onboard a whole bunch of testing data in advance of it. I kind of went a little off script there, but I wanted to get that out to you because I think it's a really important thing. I want to talk a little bit about this tweet, because I think this tweet is also something that's pretty important. Bittrex has always been on my radar because it was an American exchange that can onboard US dollars. And the deal is that whether people agree with this or not, if you really do the on-chain work, you find out that the USA is still a large majority of most crypto stuff that's going on around the planet, even though we're the most restrictive in a lot of ways, like Binance, countries we don't do business with, North Korea, Iran, and United States, which is the funniest thing to me. But anyway, the idea with Bittrex is, even though it's kind of a dinosaur exchange, which it's their icon, by the way, which is, too on the nose, I guess. But the deal is that a lot of people don't like them. They think, wow, they're really old. They do old school. They got all the old POW coins. They're not doing all DeFi type stuff. What is that? Well, it's okay. I think at this point we need a top 10, and Bittrex really fits the niche. It's either Bittrex or Kraken. There's maybe one or two more. Wabi is one that's definitely in that running. But I think it has to be one and one only to start with when we kind of get off the ground with it. And Bittrex seems like a natural thing. the primary thing with Bittrex that's nice is that they do onboard US dollar cash from like banks in the US, whereas Wabi doesn't, Qcoin doesn't, as far as I know. Those are going to have a little bit more of a challenge. Binance US isn't really a player yet. Coinbase, I don't even know with Coinbase. They're so all over the place, and they're always wrapped up in controversy and what they accept. They're so eth-centric. I don't know. It'd be great to be there, I guess, but at this point, we're going to have to set our sights just one step below there and do that. But we are going to put a push on to try and get listed on a major exchange over the next quarter, this quarter. I don't know what it's going to cost. I don't know what it's going to take, but that is a focus. So that was my point in reaching out to them, and then also encouraging you to reach out to them, because we want to let them know in advance that we're here, because that's what they really need to see. They need to know that there's a community. They need to know that it's still in development. They need to know that you're passionate. They hope it translates into transaction fees, but at the end of the day, it's important for them to know you exist first, and that's really the key to that. Behind that, we're going to have to do a lot of branding, and this goes to the stuff that Henry was talking about as well. We got these 3 websites, and I think I've done an adequate job in trying to explain this to everybody, but I'll just cover it here again real quick. SC Prime is the distributed data center. This is the permissionless network. This is the crypto-centric thing, right? The decentralized network for storage. And while it's true that anybody could store anything on this network that they want using the open source render tools that are out there, you'd be a fool not to set yourself up to accept storage from the corporation. And we said in the corporation that we want an exclusive with you as a storage provider. So at the end of the day, we're willing to do certain things, pay you extra incentives to lock you up. So it's permissionless. But, it's sort of like you're asking permission to be married. And, the benefits that accrue from that are tangible. So at the end of the day, SE Prime is that thing. And, that's always going to be its own sort of a live deal. And at some point, governance and consensus and all that stuff will sort of be spun out. But at this point, it's just kind of on autopilot and moving forward. We're still doing all the development on the OSS software, but it is what it is. Exanet Services is the corporate product that SCP Corp develops. And Exanet Services is the same thing as AWS. It's the same thing as Azure. It's the same thing as GCP. And what the deal is that we have this website called exapro.net for that, but that's only because we don't have any money right now on a marketing budget to buy some really cool names. So, we will at some point, but until then, exapro.net is going to have to satisfy that need. But that website will be everything XNS focused. And so you'll find all of the corporate proprietary cloud storage information there, the tutorials, the case studies, the trainings, the pricing and all that sort of stuff. And we do have a web developer we're working with. We're going to continue to get better at it and do even more cool looking stuff. And at some point, we'll also task him to come back and turn the SC Prime website into something more crypto looking, something more forward looking, something web, HTML5 looking with all the, whiz bang stuff that turns people on in crypto. Because I know you all hate that website and it is blah, blah, blah. But the other thing that we want to do is we want to tie them all together so that they are very closely aligned. So you go from one to the other very seamlessly, even though one is the decentralized or distributed data center and one is actually a corporate product. And then sort of underneath the XNS branding or the XM branding or whatever is the Examiner. And that node is going to continue to have its own website, even though it will take on the look and feel of the XNS website as well. So those two websites will be kind of co-joined at the hip, and then, SC Prime will sort of be off by itself. And then the two sort of groups will talk to each other very friendly and very nice and so forth. So that's kind of the whole deal on the branding. I want to jump ahead, talk a little bit about Examiner since I just hit on it. We're currently in the process of looking at UPS tracking numbers out of Los Angeles, and they need to go from Los Angeles Customs up to Fremont, California. So I suspect within a day or two, we're going to see a very neat situation, because we're going to have a whole bunch of inventory ready to roll. We have a backlog right now of systems that need to get billed immediately and shipped out the door. That will happen over the next week to 10 days is my guess, before we can kind of grind through that whole sort of batch that we've been working on. And then once that's done, the Examiner website will open up for live sales. And one of the things that people have missed in this process, and I'm okay with it, it's been fine. We had a huge list of waitlist names, and it's actually been pretty funny. I mean, I don't even know how to sort of explain this, but what's happened is, so we had this huge list of waitlist guys, and I knew that the sell-through on the waitlist was not going to be, what it was, for instance, in December. I knew that it was going to be a lot lower. And it did. It turned out to be, definitely. But it was actually beyond that, right? It was actually more than just being lower. It got to be the case where we would send out waitlist names, or we would say, okay, you had your chance on the waitlist to buy. Thanks. If you didn't want to buy, that's fine too. See you later. You've been removed from the list. Just a standard unsubscribe message. It's just not even it was, it's just a standard unsubscribe message from a server. And then they started coming in, and we've gotten about 10 of them. And I don't really understand it because I've never seen it before. But the first one came through and said 2 words only. There wasn't any other message to it. Fuck off. Okay, fair enough. Guys, I get it. Market's bad. You don't like us. I don't know, whatever. You don't like me I don't know. It doesn't even matter to me. But I thought it was funny, and I just sort of set it aside and didn't even think about it. 2 days later, another one came through. Literally littered with curse words, just ripping us a new one. And I'm like, what the fuck? What is this about? And then we got a bunch more, and I don't really totally get it now. At 1 or 2 I would have got, but the ones we got, I don't. Because it seems like we've struck a nerve. And, okay, I get it, but why not just come in directly and just go ahead and tell us, right? Why would you send this reply back to the server, which really, to be frank, I shouldn't even be monitoring. It's just that I'm so OCD about everything involved with the project that I see these emails. Otherwise, they just go to nothing, right? They just go nowhere because the person's been unsubscribed. Who the fuck cares what their reply is? It's supposed to be a no reply email, right? So, but I think it actually does kind of inform us to something. And here's what it is. And if you're one of the 1,000 Examiner owners or 1,200 or whatever it is right now, I want to kind of cover this briefly. If you look in the events discussion channel, I post 2 graphics. And I told you I've been working on this, and I have, and it's almost done. I just need to get it posted. But the whole idea of the Examiner is really different than what you're familiar with. I think a lot of people FOMO'd in under the videos. They thought, it's like, Chia. They fill up my drives to 64 terabytes or whatever, and then I just sit back and collect income. And then somehow they use coin magic to make it all profitable, and Celsius is paying 20% interest, so I get it. It must be one of those things. I don't know if that's what cause people to buy or not. But at the end of the day, this has never been that. We've never made it seem like that. We've always made it exactly what it is, which is a real product where we have to go out and, find real customers and bring them on and so forth. So what's going to end up happening is the data is going to go on to your systems, and this will be DIY or Examiner, but I'm just talking about the Examiner. It'll go on like this. And, maybe the curve will be less smooth, right? It won't be a perfectly, parabolic or whatever you want to call it there. It might get some real big fits and jumps at certain points and so forth. But what's going to end up happening is by the time you get to year 3 and 4, that's when you're going to see the amount of storage on your device really start to hold some value, some serious value. And that's when you're going to start to get really protective of these units, because right now you don't care if they get scratched. You don't really care where they live. You don't care if your dog pees on them. You don't care because they're not doing anything. You think it turned out to be just some goofball thing that isn't working, and you're making $4 a month. And wow, thanks, Faust, for lying to us, or having those video guys go out there and lie to us. I don't know if you're one of those people. If you are, just wait and hang on, hang in there. Most of you aren't that people, so I get it. This chart is going to inform what it looks like. When you get to that middle part of the chart where you start having significant data, the money rolling in is going to be better than any, 20% interest. It's going to be real money for real data storage that you're protecting and you're getting paid real good dollars for, right? And then when you start getting to the far right of that chart, it's going to be insane because you're going to be getting paid subscription revenue month in and month out on a big time basis. And then you're going to go back and you're going to start the calculations over and you're going to divide by 60 and you're going to understand, oh, I get it now. I totally see it. Now, doesn't guaranteed, right? No, nobody's saying it's going to absolutely happen this way. Product might not actually work very well. We might not do well in marketing. It may turn out that we run into some other problem or have some other hole that hits us. But look, if you've known us for 4 years, it's going to take a fuck of a lot to kill us. Because a lot of people have actually physically tried to kill us. We had a whole other project that was at one time a top 10 crypto, literally spending time and energy trying to kill us. And they failed. So, look, we're going to be here. This chart's going to come true. And you all are going to be rewarded. And if you look at kind of how it plays out, I posted the bottom of the spreadsheet. When you start looking at having 55, 58, 61 terabytes of storage on one of those devices, you're starting to look at serious monthly income coming across for that kind of number. And you can kind of get an idea of some calculations depending on what the coin price does at the same time and how much in the way of incentives you can earn. And we're going to provide you with ways to earn more incentives than what you can currently earn right now. We've got 3 or 4 already skewed up in the Grafana. They exist. You can see them. We just have to actually implement them and get them out there. So people not buying Examiners right now, it's okay. We're selling enough to keep funding our development. We're selling enough to stay in the race and to keep it going. It would be great if we dropped another 2,000 or 3,000 all of a sudden, but you know what? It's fine with me if we don't. We will soon enough once people really do start to see what happens and they come flying in because some new video crop starts to show up out there and we end up in that place. And they see the coin price going up and they kind of recognize everything that people have not been able to see over the last 3 or 4 months. It just is what it is. This is how the game works. It's a long game, not a short game. All right, so that's that. Last thing I want to talk about is this data loss thing. I'm not going to go too far on it. Just really quickly want to touch on it. It's been really troubling. We introduced this thing to prune the data for certain kinds of circumstances and cases, and it was an aggressive, set of methods. And ultimately, we saw some pretty robust data loss. We went from 1 petabyte down to about 800, I think, on the first wave. And then we thought we had kind of cleaned it up, so we lost 20% of the data on the network, but then we thought we kind of cleaned it up. But then it turned out that there were still some edge cases or cases that it was looking to, and it was still out there causing some cliff dives on some people. And so we finally got it under control, shut it off with 166. So if you haven't upgraded, you really need to. If you have an Examiner, don't worry about it. It's already done. But now we have this hole to dig out of before I can give you that second petabyte of data on your providers. So all of you people waiting for your second petabyte, you're going to have to wait until we can fill in the hole of the people we, pulled data off of. It's not a promise or a commitment. We're not telling everybody, hey, we promise to restore that lost data because you deserve it, you owe it, you're owed it. It's just something that we're doing because we want to seed the network with enough data to hold you guys through till these partners start coming through with actual real data and we can start paying for the real data instead of for the test data. So we're seeding the network and, I've tasked one of my devs to get me some costs on how we need to do this to get this done quickly. taking a little longer than I anticipated, but we will get it done, and we'll get the line back up to where it's supposed to go. All I can tell you guys is that these are the best of times for us. They really are. This is everything we've been waiting for. Yes, as we have always done as a team, we've kind of stepped on our own dicks a little bit right at the end when we were ready to really kind of do it. But look, you wouldn't love us if we didn't do some of that stuff. So, it is what it is, and we are who we are. But we do have one of the only really truly working business clouds that has all of the features that we have distributed, crazily across the planet, the ability to scale up and scale out at the same time, the ability to disrupt cost in a way that's crazy, the ability to provide security that is so far and above, even though the units individually are living in people's basements and garages and shit like that. We're literally about to, announce to the world that we have the technology to disrupt Azure, to disrupt AWS, to disrupt GCP, and to take that control away from them and return it back to you, the people. Yeah, little Bane thing. But okay, that's where we're at. We hope you're really excited. Keep your eye on the data because it's going to start going up for you. If you're a partner that can MSP stuff, and I mean a real MSP, somebody who really has access to people who can upload, definitely get back in contact with the partner group. Definitely start asking questions. Definitely get in there. Bring us deals, because if you bring us deals, we're going to put money right in your pocket. We're going to be giving you capability so that your customers can get cloud storage for a period of time at a significantly discounted price, so that they can try out the network, so that they can become case studies, so that they can really help us grow this thing up fast. Henry is going to be your point man on entry into the world, getting them onboarded, getting them understanding how the relayers work, how to set them up. And, that's kind of where we're at. So all I want to say is thanks to everybody for being here. It's been a great period of time. And I think the best of times are just about to start for us, even though we're at the very bottom of a bear market in crypto, waiting to see our way out. We thank everybody for being here. Stick around because it's only going to get better. And I'm going to give you some play out music this time versus just immediately cutting you all off this time. Thanks everybody for coming. We'll see you next time.